Hello and welcome. It is Tuesday, June 19th, and we are in week 4 here, the final home stretch for the class. We have just finished out week 3, which had you going through using Wise to set up the music and sound effects to work in both Angry Bots and 2D Platformer. Hopefully, you were successful in that process. I did get a few messages of people that did have issues, and we can certainly work through any sort of and troubleshoot any problems. If you provided like screenshots and a description of what's going on, then I can probably very easily, if I haven't already, sent back a response and can help you work through any sort of issues. If you are having issues but haven't sent me screenshots or a complete description, go ahead and do that. That way I can work through any sort of challenges. Most people go through and really have no issues, or let me rephrase that. They might encounter issues as they go along, but ultimately they kind of work through and figure out the technical roadblocks that might get in the way. But every month there's a couple of errors that we run into for all sorts of reasons. One of the main things that I do find is that if you have renamed, or if there is a like duplicate name, like you download the game multiple times or you download Wise multiple times and it starts naming a folder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a copy of a file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the file names or folder names change, then the whole equation doesn't work. So make sure if you are downloading again or unzipping it again or something like that, that is basically in a clean folder, and all of the file names and folder names are as written, like in their original form. So that is often a common issue. Some other other things that we run into is where it is on your hard drive. Typically, if you just run it off your desktop, then it'll probably work just fine. Or if you have your own folder structure on your hard drive, as long as you keep everything in one place, then there could be. If you keep it all in one place, then you should typically be fine. We have found that if it's run off of a thumb drive, or sometimes even an external drive, or is in a folder structure that's like really deep with really long file names and folder names, that it can cause it to be confused in how it's all supposed to work. So typically having a clean folder on your desktop with everything named as indicated in the assignment, it should work pretty well. Often you can certainly put it in your own folder structure, but if it gets too far deep or off of the main hard drive, then sometimes that might work. Here in the chat, might also clear your cache too if you're doing that. To make sure. I mean, sometimes it's restarting the computer and just kind of having everything fresh could also run in and might fix an issue. So who knows? If you are having issues, haven't reached out already, definitely send me as much information as you can, what the errors say, screenshots, and we can certainly work through anything. There is also a troubleshooting FAQ, but more than likely, if you are having issues, you found that, you looked through it and didn't particularly solve whatever issue you're running into. So we can make sure that we work through any sort of issues that pop up. We definitely want to do that through this week to get everything wrapped up for the class. Your assignments this week are kind of focused towards taking all of the work that you've done and all the projects and games that you've worked on, your compositions and your sound design, and putting it all together into a format that can easily be shown off to future employers, future clients, add it to a portfolio or demo reel. You're going to, by this point, you will have your music and your sound effects working in the game. You can test it out, make sure everything works. You might go back through Wise or even back into Logic to tweak the mix or volumes or overall design of something. But by this point, your music and sound effects will be working in the game, and you will create a video capture to show off your work. The games are yours to show off, to distribute. You can put them on Dropbox and share a link around. You can put them on a website. They are yours to show off. However, technically, there might be some roadblocks overall, mainly that there is no guarantee that a piece of software might work a day or a week or a month or a year or 5 or 10 years from now, because especially on a Mac computer, Apple is notorious for constantly updating their operating system and keeping up with the newest and latest stuff, but maybe leaving behind older pieces of software that don't update right along with it. So so in that case, having a video representation, a video capture, and you'll be uploading it to YouTube to be able to send it back to me, gives you a very easy way of showing off the work that you've done. So that is our focus of the assignments this week, doing the video capture, and there's also a kind of a final project delivery summary that we will discuss also. But that's what's upcoming for week 4. And just like our previous sessions in our week 2 and week 3, we're going to start out with a bit of peer review. We're going to take a listen to a couple of the chiptune submissions that we have available. I'm going to, where did that go? I'm going to play them, just play the MP3 directly here. We'll also load up the screenshots and take a look at whatever information we can kind of infer of how it was created. But overall, well, I guess I'll keep that up there. Our main focus on this composition was the restrictions overall, the restrictions on your composition and kind of restrictions on your tool set. So the overall direction of this composition was to go back to the kind of earliest technology of game audio, or at least back to one of its big landmarks in the design of audio for games, back to the original Nintendo, where you were limited to typically 4 basic channels, 4 basic simple waveforms that were available for all video games. So there were over 100 video games released for the original Nintendo, and they all used the same basic sound set to create their compositions. That's why so much of that music, the music of that era, sounds so similar. But what they were able to do with the composition itself varied widely. And so you were tasked with creating a composition that used 4 simultaneous voices. You could have more than 4 tracks, but only 4 voices playing at any one time. On the original Nintendo system, it was each channel was monophonic. So that is one restriction that we didn't particularly follow. So you were able to use chords in this composition, and you were able to use more than 4 tracks. But at any one time, only 4 voices could be played. You had to have drums, and you have to have a melodic line, and that melody needs to change at some point over the course of the composition. So that leaves, so you have drums, melody, you could have drums, bass, harmony, melody, you could have drums, bass, melody. You could come up with a couple of different combinations. The sounds are so restricted. The sounds are so kind of simple, maybe even boring overall, that it was really focused on the composition. You didn't really have all of the tools and all of the toys that are available in your typical DAW. So take away all of that, it really got down to the basics of the composition, or really the strength of the composition. So that's really our focus overall. Number one, that you stayed within the lines and you stayed within the required number of voices and the required sound set. You made sure you had the required instrumentation, drums, and a strong melody. Typically moving at a faster pace with more kind of a staccato feel, with a strong rhythmic groove. These elements work very well for this kind of limited sound set. Fast arpeggiators work. If you hook some of these simple waveforms up to an arpeggiator that's going at 32, 64, or 128th notes, then you will get these very classic kind of sweeps, especially if you start using chords and using an arpeggiator to create kind of these classic sounds. Also, parallel fifths, parallel thirds were common techniques for that era. All right, so that's kind of what we're listening for, kind of what we're expecting. So we have 4 submissions here. Let me know if you have any questions or comments as we go along. We'll start out. Make sure we're opening this correctly. Let's do this. Bring that screenshot back up. Come on, squeeze in there. There you go. All right, let's try it. All right, here in, oh, no visual. I'm sorry about that. There we go. Yes, here in the chat, let's see. Where's my scroll? Oh, there it goes. Someone playing Legend of Zelda circa 88, cross between Double Dragon and Zelda. Yes, the first note, I had exactly the same feeling of Legend of Zelda, because it goes, oh, come on. So, yeah, is it even that first interval? No. But, yeah, the slight kind of vibrato to the note definitely invokes that, which is works very well. I liked the kind of dissonance between the different layers. I kind of felt that it's kind of creeping around, maybe like in a cave or something, or maybe an underground level. There's good harmonic movement throughout. good changes. Maybe well, you certainly should have the lead sound change at some point, or switch to another sound, maybe go up an octave. Also in the chat, sounds like there's some borrowed chords hidden in there. Sound out of place. Let's see. Where'd my mouse go? Well, yeah, there's definitely some dissonance in there. Whether or not it's intentional, we're going to go in the direction of definitely intentional. But it does create some dissonance here and there. One thing with the rhythm, I would like maybe to hear the rhythm take off at some point, especially after this kind of snare buildup. I think happens right around here. Yeah, to have everything just kind of, the drums go to more of a double time feel to pick up the energy and pace of everything. Then that certainly could happen earlier on, maybe right after the first third of the piece. All right, I think everything fits together. Definitely works within the boundaries overall. Would like to hear the lead change and maybe the percussion rhythm, or the kind of rhythmic pattern change up a bit. All right, where is the next round? Ah, there we go. All right. Yep, definitely got a underground, a kind of adventure exploration vibe to it. All right, next one here. Maybe I would like to see a little bit more of what's going on up here, but let's check out. Where's the audio? Oh no. It's going to open in iTunes. All right, sorry about that. It's a great start, though. I like it. Just make sure everything fits. Okay, let's try that again. Tetris all the way here in the chat. Excellent job. Very good. Strong thematic line there. Great pacing to it overall. Again, in the chat, Tetris definitely fits that vibe. You could almost sing the main Tetris theme right along with that. And then there was a good textural change halfway through. Yep. So worked very well for a puzzle game overall. I almost got like a flying vibe right here, almost sort of kind of soaring through the sky. Yeah, the energy of the piece, everything works very well for this type of sound palette. So great job overall. Picks back up, and then the rhythm goes off, and it takes off again. And you could get that stuck in your brain after hearing that playing a puzzle game, and you'd be humming that for quite a while after the fact, which is exactly what you are looking for. And what happened, which is why a lot of those classic Nintendo themes are just drilled into people's brains, because they heard it over and over again, and they were extremely catchy, and that repetition just kind of ingrains them into people's memories, collective memories. So excellent job. Definitely a good use of the sound palette. All right, let's check out, make sure I do this the correct way this time. All right, let's close this one. Oops. Bring this over here. All right. There we go. We'll try the next one here. All right, well, the first thing is it's utilizing an entirely different sound palette and using multiple, too many tracks overall, too many voices. So while it definitely works as a interesting piece, feels like time's running out in the game at that speed. But yeah, missing the utilizing the restrictions of the assignment. So take the elements that you have, but you're going to need to reduce them down to the limited sound palette and the limited number of tracks. So watch out for that. And let's try this one here. There we go. Oops. Well, that's way too big. All right, there we go. Close that one. chat, we got Street Fighter. That's a good reference. That definitely fits. Very nice. Excellent work. I can definitely hear like round one. Choose your fighter. Choose your location. And a whole bunch of kind of like fighting sounds on top of that. That definitely works. All right, great job overall. I think it again utilizes the restricted palette very well. Works against works with the strong pace and the kind of strong forward momentum to really give us a good sense of energy for whatever game it would be in. So yeah, a fighting game would definitely work. All right, so, and then you have great kind of rhythmic peaks and valleys overall, so you give a little bit of time for everybody to breathe, and then it all comes back in. Really focuses on the strong lead line. Almost to the point like maybe feel like I really hear the percussion, the bass line, and the melody. Feels like maybe the other melodic line or harmonic line gets lost in the mix. I don't know if it's just because it's following another element so closely, but that could definitely come up to help support what's going on. Yeah, it's just kind of faint in the background at times. Also here in the chat, love that they usually still have these games in pizza places. Absolutely. Feels like I'm just eating a whole bunch of pizza, got a whole bunch of quarters, and going to play my favorite racing game or fighting game or something like that. So fits the type of game and the type of composition very well. Everything looks like it's easily laid out too. There we go. I was a little bit concerned when it kind of really slowed down here. Because the groove slows down at this point, and then everything dies out. And but it all comes back in very quickly, so I was very relieved that it picked back up and kind of rocks out all the way to the end. So very good job, good submission here. I think I found the correct submission, so I apologize if I pulled the wrong one previously, but we do have another one to listen to here. Let's open this up. No. There we go. Well, looks the same. Or, let's see. Yeah. It's closer. But still utilizing synths and tracks outside the bounds. Okay. Just wanted to check that one out also. All right. So let's see. We had, where's my folder here? All right, so we had 4 good submissions there. Things to listen for as we kind of identified. Um, what the as identified earlier, the faster the pace, the stronger the groove, the more kind of it's pushing the energy forward of the music. That works very well for this type of instrumentation, this type of production. This I find some of the strongest compositions in the class come from this assignment because it really does strip away all of the toys and all of the tools and um, much more focused on the composition itself, the notes, harmony, melody, rhythm, how it all works together. Some people love that it's stripped down and can really focus. A lot of folks, when they get into their DAW, they open up all these synths and sample libraries, and they're just faced with an infinite amount of sounds, an infinite amount of possibilities. They are, a lot of folks, myself included, will can often get into the habit of writing or composing for a particular sound as opposed to composing for melody or harmony or themes or motifs, and then just determining what the sound of those lines are going to be later on, what instrument are going to hold those notes. So here, it's almost like it doesn't matter what the sounds are. I mean, you can find some interesting tones, and they're a little bit different, but most of the time they're just bleeps and bloops. So we get directly into melody and harmony and get down to kind of the focus of the composition itself, which allows that to flourish. So you bypass all of the infinite amounts of possibilities and get directly down to the composition. It's kind of like composing on a piano. It doesn't matter that it's going to be a full orchestra later. You're starting out with the basic components and a spread of notes that you can choose from, and you get directly into the composing part of things. So one way that I often suggest of developing this composition further is taking the limited composition that you have and developing it with kind of a full sound palette, full orchestration, all the tricks and tools that you have in your kind of toolbox there. Then you can kind of show off the different phases of what might be possible with the composition. So if you had no money, no budget, limited technology, you were just down to simple waveforms, you could still write very memorable music with a whole lot of restrictions. Then you move on to maybe the second half of a minute-long composition. So you got 30 seconds of chip tune, and then somewhere in the middle, it starts shifting and changing into a fully orchestrated piece. It's still the same composition. It's still the same melody and rhythms, and it's just pushing into a different avenue overall, and shows what is possible with all the tools out there. So it could go into full orchestral, it could go into full synthesis or whatever it is, and it kind of shifts from one to another. So these are great ways of just kind of developing these projects a bit further. In the chat here, I have, well, why is it not scrolling? Are we going to be listening to the YouTube videos on Thursday? If you would like to, I could definitely, we could definitely check them out. I have them assigned, or the deadline, it's not due by then. So there's not really a pool of them to check out by this point, because a lot of folks are still working on them, different elements. If you would like to show these off, there is the discussion post that is available on this week, and we could take a look at those. But since they're not necessarily in their final version, we don't take a listen to those. But yeah, they are available on the discussion post. Everybody is encouraged to post up their final versions of the 2D platformer and Angry Bots compositions so that you can check them out. Yeah, if you're coming in on Thursday and want to discuss, I would love to, and definitely love checking out everybody's final versions of them. It is quite entertaining to hear it all come together. Often I find that the finished version is greater than the sum of its parts, where we could go through and find all sorts of issues, maybe individually with music and sound effects. Once you put it in there with the graphics and the mix and the interactivity, and then you do the video capture of it, it ends up being a strong portfolio piece to show off your work. Or you get it up to that point and you realize, hey, these are the things that I need to do on it. And now that you've kind of gone through it in one pass, it's a whole lot easier to go through it and update it and make any changes to make the kind of perfect version that you're looking out for. Because and really kind of focus on that now, because there's not a whole bunch of guarantee that once you get out beyond the class and beyond the degree program, that you're going to want to come back and dig through the project. A lot of people lean into it and can find all sorts of new things that they want to try. But other folks may not touch it beyond the class overall. So you want to make sure that video is as professional as possible and is the best representation of your music and your sound effects. Because I'm the same way. I have videos and media that from sessions and projects that I probably couldn't open them up, or they're on media that doesn't exist anymore, but I still have those final versions, WAV files, MP3s, video captures, and all that stuff is going to be very valuable to you as you add all sorts of media to demo reels and hold on to that stuff for quite a while. And obviously you're constantly updating it and switching out for new stuff. So that's really our focus here towards the end of the month and through week 4. Again, if you have any questions on Wise or doing the video captures or wrapping anything up for the month, please reach out and let me know. We can certainly work through and discuss anything. We want to get that all wrapped up for this month. So I'm going to turn it over to the archive now to discuss your last round of assignments. I'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards if you have any questions. But other than that, good work on your chiptune compositions, good work on your Angry Bots and 2D platformer Wise projects. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the final versions of everything once you get them in the game. So make sure you're sharing stuff on the discussion post. Other than that, thank you very much. We'll meet again on Thursday. If you have any questions or if you want to show off your project and discuss any aspects of that, or if hopefully the class has definitely piqued your interest further in the games industry and you want to discuss more about other resources and kind of how to continue on beyond the class, let me know. I can certainly talk all day long about all that stuff, and that is what the archive on Thursday discusses also. So let me know if you have any questions. Other than that, have a great day, and I will see you again on Thursday. Thanks. All right, so we have our submissions there. Like I said, the focus of this week is, your final week is to take the information and the projects that you've worked on and put them in the best light to show them off beyond the class and beyond your time at Full Sail, and be able to show the work off that you've done and completed, hopefully to future employers and future clients and whatnot. So as you have been progressing through all of your classes, you certainly should be gathering together as much of your classwork and materials and projects that you've been working on and put it together into a strong demo reel to show that off. And that includes these game projects. They are well and good as grades and as projects for a class, but their real intention is to give you a vehicle to show off your music and to show off your work and be able to demonstrate that out there as you get started in the industry. So we are going to talk about the best way of showing off your music that is intended to play back in the game is to actually have somebody play the game. The best way of demonstrating your music for a game is to actually demo that game. So you have the game projects, you have the game applications, and you can distribute those as you wish. They are yours. They are free for you, free for educational purposes, free for demo purposes. The only thing is you just you would indicate that you did all of the music and sound, but you don't claim that you created the game. But they are for you to put on a website, put in Dropbox, and send it around to future clients or future employers, and to show off your work. However, there are some limitations, mostly like technical limitations, with demonstrating your game. The first one is it's a Mac game, and so whoever wants to play the game needs to have a Mac computer in order to play it. The games can be put in or made as PC games, but that takes a lot of extra understanding and programming to convert the projects. I mean, it is possible, but mostly you have a Mac application. And so somebody has to have a Mac, and maybe whoever you're sending this off to has a computer, and they can check it out. They have to have a computer powerful enough to play the games. That isn't as much of an issue as it used to be, as people's computers have progressively gotten better over the years and have started with better computers. We really don't have much of an issue running these projects. So then you have another issue of very smart people on the internet won't probably just download some random application and run it on their computer. You would be very smart not to just download random zip files and open them up and play them on your computer. Now, of course, that's not the case with these applications, and they aren't. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but just a random link on a website, you're not going to get tons of people just saying, "Okay, sure, I'm just going to download this unknown application and run it." So you need to have some way of showing off your work. You need to have some way of people being able to see your music working in a game. You could just take like one of your main loop files and put it up on SoundCloud and say, "Hey, here's a loop that I wrote for a game, and I promise it works in the game." So the best way of showing off your music working in the game is actually having the game to show off. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a video capture of you playing the game with your music and sound effects working. So by this point in the month, you have composed the music for both of these projects, created all the sound effects. We had an opportunity for peer review, and you also got feedback for your submission. You have the opportunity to do any revisions or changes to that composition or those sound effects. Last week you used Wise and used an audio middleware tool to connect your music and your sound effects working in the game. You got it working in the game, you tested it out, you played the game, and you listened to your sound effects and your music, and more than likely found some issues with it. I mean, I guess you could knock it out of the park the first time every single time, but most of the time you get it in the game and there's I don't know, 75, 80% of it's all right, but there's another 20% there that I need to tweak and to change. So you go back to your sounds and you tweak your sounds a little bit. You go back to your music and you mix your files and you bounce everything out again. And you test it, put it back in the game, test it out. And that is a very constant kind of revision or iteration cycle where you compose something, you say, I think this is going to work. You put it in the game, go, man, that kind of works, but I need to do this. Then you go back and you fix it, you put it back in the game, you test it out, and you go around and around. So once you get everything set up in the game, then now you're ready to do this final video capture. It basically proves the process that you have created all the music and sound effects, put it in the game, tested it out, and have something to show for it. So you will be using QuickTime and a program called Loopback in order to capture the video on the screen, or the game on the screen. All right, so let me talk about how you will set this up and how this will actually work. So actually I can just do this real quick. When you go on FSO, here's week 4. Here's your final game captures assignment. Notice that it is 0 weighted. That doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. It's just not turned in here. You are going to turn it down here in the final project delivery. So don't just ignore the assignment because it is 0 weighted. But it provides you with all the material. It says you will submit this YouTube link in a separate assignment on FSO. Final game capture. So you'll get a PDF here, and you'll get a PDF here. And the first one just gives you mostly just an overview and delivery instructions. Just kind of a real quick summary of how it all works and how to deliver everything here. But there's a separate PDF that goes slide by slide and goes into a lot more detail. So let me just take a look at this here. You will use QuickTime, which is already installed on your computer, and a program called Loopback in order to capture audio inside of your computer. Loopback is a free application. You can just go to the link here. Well, it's not a free application. It costs $99, but you don't need the $99 version. I don't know, unless you completely love the application and you want to support these people, but really you just need the free download for our purposes. The limitation with the free download is that it lasts for 15 minutes, and you only need to record for a minute or two. So if for some reason the 15 minutes runs out, then you just shut down the program and open it back up, and you got another 15 minutes. But after a while, it starts blasting white noise at you, so make sure if you hear that, that's what's going on there. So you just download the Loopback, and what it is it is a virtual audio cable application for your computer. Meaning, you are going to record the video using QuickTime. You've probably used QuickTime at some point. This is actually QuickTime down here for all my videos. QuickTime is just capture the video from your webcam, or actually in this instance it's going to capture the actual screen, but QuickTime doesn't allow you to do audio from inside of your computer. Actually, here's a better view of it. This is what it looks like when you open up and do the screen recording, and when you hit this down arrow, it doesn't allow you to record from inside of your own computer because of all sorts of nefarious copyright reasons. They don't want you recording everything that's ever been played through your entire computer, but for our purposes, it's your music. You want to record it, so you need to have a way of actually doing that. That's where Loopback comes in. And when you download Loopback and you run it, it looks like this. Here. And it says, hey, click here to create a new virtual device. And when you create a new virtual device, it's actually creating like an audio interface inside of your computer. Just like you take a cable and you go cable out of a guitar into an amp, or just a cable out of one thing into another, This takes a cable, a virtual cable, and goes out of your game into QuickTime. If I look at my audio MIDI setup now, it actually adds an extra interface to run everything through. And when you do that and you go back to QuickTime, oh my goodness. Hello, computer. There it goes. When you come back here and look in here, you should now have a loopback audio interface. Once you do all of that, the other thing you need to do is come in here and you need to tell it to actually go what application you want to record. And you want it to point to 2D Platformer or Angry Bots, whichever one you're recording. Right here. And when you do that, it shows up here. You will be able to, I don't want to do this right now, but you want to be able to listen through your speakers. You uncheck the mute audio sources so that you can hear everything. And then you go run the game, and you should be able to meter it. Once you play the game, you should see some meters here inside of the screen recording, and you know at that point that it's working. When you get this set up, you might hear it doubled up, like it might monitor back twice. Depends on how you have your audio set up, but it either can be this, it could be monitoring through QuickTime, which could be this fader. It could be this setting, monitor through audio through whatever your output is. So double check those just to make sure. The other thing is, if you hear it doubled, it doesn't actually capture doubled. So you can just hit record anyway. You'll monitor it doubled, and then you'll listen. The video will be fine. So just a couple of pointers there. So you'll install Loopback. You'll set up for the screen recording. Like I said, you'll create a new virtual device. You'll select the game application that you want to run. You check the checkboxes. You open up QuickTime. You set up a new screen recording. I showed you this where you click the little arrow and you want to set up to Loopback so that you can record inside of QuickTime. At that point, you should see meters. And you can hit record. Depends on if you have like 2 screens set up. If you're just recording on your one screen, you can either click and drag just a portion of your screen if it's in a window, or you can just click and it will record the entire screen. Depends on how you have it set up. The only thing to watch out for is most of everybody's computers now have Retina displays, and that's like a really super high resolution. And if you do the entire full screen, it might just slow everything down trying to capture all that stuff. It just might be something to watch out for. I got a couple more slides on that. So the best thing to do is run it in a window and just kind of highlight over the window so that it only captures. You don't capture all of your messy desktop and all this extra stuff. You just capture exactly what you want. So it starts the screen capture. You can run like I said, you can run it in a window. If you click this little checkbox, it says it's in a window. If you unclick this checkbox, it says it's not in a window. More than likely, you've played the game up to this point. You probably know how best it is to run. You've probably already set all this stuff, if you even had to mess with it at all. So more than likely, it's just fine. But if things start acting screwy while trying to do the recording, some of these settings can help. So you hit record when you're ready to go, and you start recording and demonstrating the game. The actual content of the video, I leave that very much up to you. It's your demo video. It's what you want to show off and how you want to show it off. What I'm most concerned with, most focused on, is the process. The fact that you have the game, you have the music and sound effects working in the game, that's a huge portion of the project that you're now demonstrating. And you also have QuickTime and you've got Loopback or something installed. I guess I should also point out, if you already have and you use something like Soundflower or Audio Hijack, those things are identical to Loopback, or at least in our function, for what we need, and so you can use those pieces of software as long as it doesn't watermark it or do anything weird with the video or audio. If you already have it set up in a certain way, you can use that. But once you've captured this video, you show that you have all of the sound effects and music working in the game, and you can do a video capture. You have the game playing back. You're using QuickTime and something like Loopback to capture the audio. And so if later on you have a different project or different sounds, you want to redo this one, you can always just create new video captures to show the work that you've done. Demonstrate all the music and sound design. The other thing to point out is I do not count every single sound effect, meaning that I don't like track that you have triggered every single sound effect in every piece of music, because I know that a lot of it or some of it is left up to chance. You can't always trigger every single music file because it's random. So you're going to get like 3 intros, 3 main loops, and only 2 of the endings will play within about 2 minutes long. We suggest that the videos be around 1 minute to 2 minutes long. Which is right here. Oops. Right. Oh, there it is. Video capture should be no longer than 2 minutes. So again, the content is up to you. How you demonstrate it is up to you. I would suggest a big one is don't play the game like you're trying to win the game. Don't just do the video capture just to show off how good you are at playing the game. It's about showing off all of the sounds. One common thing that I'll see especially with 2D platformer, is I'll hear the intro and then they'll start playing the game, and for like a minute or two I'll just see them play the game and they'll never die, or they'll just die once at the end and stop the video, and that means I only saw 1 intro and 1 ending. You created 4 other files and never showed anybody. So die a couple of times, jump off the edge, trigger some of those ending cues, try to trigger as many of the sound effects as possible, and just kind of, show it off in its best light overall. Then you stop the screen recording. You save the screen recording, name it your last name, your first name, GCP Week4 2D platformer, whatever or Angry Bots. Do not name it last name, first name. Your name isn't last name, first name. You have a last name. You have a first name. Please, it happens every month. Somebody at some point names something last name, first name. So just watch out for that. And then please, please, please check your screen recording. Watch the video after it's done. This happens. I mean, most people do this, no problem. But for some reason, I will always, every month, I'll get a series of videos that either the audio is just missing, or they used the internal microphone on their computer. It played out of their computer speakers and then back into the internal microphone. And if it didn't feed back, then it sounds horrible. It just sounds really thin, and you hear them in the background, like breathing and clicking on their keyboard, and it's really kind of weird. And you hear their dog barking in the background and their family running around or whatever it is. So just watch out for that. Double check the video. Make sure it has the correct content of it. It has the correct thing that you captured. The other thing is don't hit record and record it for 2 minutes the first time, because there's no telling if you got it right the first time. So just hit record for a few seconds, and then stop it and check the recording and make sure you're actually capturing the thing you think you're recording. So you don't have to do it over and over again and waste any time. A couple optional tips. Clear off the desktop. If you are capturing any aspect of the desktop, it's probably best to just make it as clear as possible. I know a lot of folks, we have audio directors and people in different game teams come and talk to our Full Sail student or come talk to our students. And they'll say often if we see screenshots or things and it just looks like you have a messy desktop and you posted up a video and it just looks like things are all over the place, it's not probably going to help your cause overall because a lot of people don't want to work with that. You can either do a full screen or a high resolution recording. You can do a low resolution recording. If more than likely the video capture is just going to work just fine. Every once in a while, depending on people's computers and whatever they're running or how they have it set up, this might start making your computer chug a little bit because you got to play the game and do a video capture at the same time. If that is the case, then as long as the audio doesn't stutter or doesn't drop out, if the video kind of gets slow or choppy, that's fine. For the purposes of the video, for the grade and for the assignment, that's fine. Obviously, you want to make as a high quality video as possible. I wouldn't really even consider just focusing on the fact that it's an assignment. Create a proper and a demo video that you can use beyond the class. So if need be, try shrinking down the resolution of the game. Maybe even try shrinking down the resolution of your monitor and your screen. That might help create smoother videos overall. Once you have done the video for both Angry Bots and 2D Platformer, you're going to post them up on YouTube. Just put them up there. You can put it just so that I can view it. You don't have to make it completely public, but don't make it private. Make sure that you post it up and you can share the link and have everybody reference it. So the assignment of the video capture is really getting everything set up. Once it's working, then it's just playing the game and just showing off how your music and sound effects sound in the game. All right, so that is your final video capture. And to then show it off, or then to kind of deliver the final version of everything back here on FSO. The kind of big assignment for this week is your final project delivery. And this is going to be basically, it's a 10-question test, but it's not like a test that you study for because you have all the answers. It's just really a summary of your composition. So it's broken down into two halves. 5 of the questions are for 2D Platformer, 5 of the questions for Angry Bots. They're very similar to each other. The first one is 2D Platformer video capture. Provide the YouTube link to your 2D Platformer game capture video. So you just did the video capture, you uploaded it to YouTube, now post the YouTube link here. Make sure that it works. You can always go into incognito mode to check links. That's how I do a lot of my stuff with YouTube and Google, since I have like a personal login for YouTube and Google, but whenever I want to do any Full Sail stuff, you just go into incognito mode and it forgets who you are, and then you can log in as whatever you want. So if you just double check all the links that you're going to send me, make sure that they work. You can use incognito mode to do that, or send them to somebody else, and then that's how I will be able to check it also. So give me a YouTube link. This is actually quite important. A missing YouTube link or a missing audio track in a video renders the submission ungradable. If I can't hear it, if I can't hear your music and your sound effects, or the video doesn't work, or the link doesn't work, I can't grade the rest of the assignment. So make sure the video is there and working. Then you'll send me a screenshot of your DAW session. You will, this is the 2D Platformer instrumentation. List the instruments that you used in the intros, main loop, and ending cues. Name any synths or sample library sources for all the tracks. So you will tell me what instruments you used. Tell me in the intros, the main loops, and the endings, which synths, which drums. Don't just tell me I used a piano and I used a banjo and an organ and a synthesizer. Tell me which presets, which sample libraries, which synthesizers you used, which presets you used, so that the idea is if somebody else had to recreate this session, they knew what instruments. They could go load up those, assuming that they had the same instrumentation that you did, somebody could kind of recreate all of this stuff if necessary. Next, 2D platformer transitions. You will take screenshots of your intros, your main loops, and your endings, and then line them up in a particular way. You are going to take your intro 1 and connect it to main loop 2, and then connect it to ending 3. And then take intro 2 and connect it to main loop 3, and then go to ending 1. And then take intro 3 and go to main loop 1, and go to ending 2. I guess I could just read it up here. Basically, it's taking all of your tracks and rearranging them into different orders, taking a screenshot of it, and then answering a few questions, like describe what you listen to each track. How does the music transition from one cue to the next? Describe what you hear. Does the intensity of the music build with the intro cue? Are the same instruments heard from the intros through the main loops and the endings? Are there any hiccups or pops as the music shifts from one music cue to the next? So these are just basic overview. How well did it work? Did it sound as you expected? Just kind of give me insight into the final product. Then you will create a screenshot of your final mix. Give me a peak level and an RMS level. Use the level meter plugin found in Logic, just so I can get an overview of your levels. AngryBots section is very much very similar. AngryBots video capture. Provide the YouTube link for that. Give me a screenshot of your AngryBots session. And list the instrumentation used in your ambient, buzzer action, mech action, and spider action cues. Then you'll take your 4 files, line them all up together, ambient, buzzer action, mech action, spider action, and then basically comment the same way. How did it work? Listen to your cues playing back together. Describe what you hear. How well did the cues play back? Are there any noticeable issues? Do the cues start and end at the same time? Are there any rhythms that clash? Do the melodies or harmonies clash? Just to get an overview of how well the main portion of the composition worked. Give me a summary with a screenshot of your AngryBots mix. So really, it's just kind of like a post-mortem overview, summary, summation of how well everything worked in the final projects. So that is the direction we are headed in this last week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stick around here for a few minutes if you have any questions. But again, this is the last week. Let me know if you are having any challenges or anything that you need to discuss in the final part of the week. But we have one more class on Thursday. We can listen to or discuss any or anything that you need, or take a look at your final video. But other than that, let's end it there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again on Thursday.